Hello everybody and welcome back to the Ōkami walkthrough. The lucky mallet is guiding us somewhere. I wonder where to. But before we actually, do anything, we have enough money now to buy the 7 strike. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Because, it's an extra weapon. It's more powerful. And also, seeing as we're going into a dungeon, it makes perfect sense to have a new weapon. Now, this weapon is the 7 strike. And the thing is that's quite fun, is that this is a real sword in Japanese culture. So, its Japanese name in Ōkami is Nanatsusaya no Tachi, with Shito added on. I don't know what that's for, but yes, and that is the name of a real sword in Japanese culture, which is the 7-branch sword, which is a continental manufacture believed to be identical with the artifact of that name, which was a gift of the king of Baekji that had been bestowed upon a Yamato ruler as a gift, and it's mentioned in the Nihon Shoki in the 52nd year of the reign of the semi-mythical empress Jingu. And there is a physical replica that is at a war memorial in Seoul, South Korea. Basically, it's a 74.9cm long iron sword with six branch-like protrusions along the central blade, so that's why you get 7-branched sword. The original sword has been conserved since antiquity in the Ōkami shrine in the Nara prefecture, Japan, and it's not on public display. But what's really cool is that, because obviously I'm going off Wikipedia for this, so it's not necessarily the most accurate stuff, but it's good enough. But, so, where the sword is mentioned in the Nihon Shoki, the text says, 52nd year, autumn, 9th month, 10th day, Kuchyo and others came along with Chikuma Nagahiko and presented a 7-branched sword and a 7-little-one mirror, with various other objects of great value. They addressed the Empress, saying, "West of thy servants' country, there is a river source which issues from Mount Cholsan in Kongna. It is distant 7 days' journey. It need not be approached, but one should drink this water, and so, having gotten the iron of this mountain, wait upon the sage court for all ages." So, that's where it's mentioned. It's not hugely important, but it's part of the history. But what's really cool is that it's got inscriptions on both sides. Well, both sides, and there are certain ambiguous characters that nobody quite understands. But roughly, the first side says, "It's noon on the 16th day of the 11th month, May, 4th year of something or other. The sword was made of 100 times hardened steel. Using the sword repels 100 enemy soldiers, appropriate for the polite Duke King. It is sent bestowed to the king, manufactured by All Good Fortune 2, and then nothing else. Second side, never before has there been such a blade. The Crown Prince of Baekji's king, who lives under August Sounds, had his sword made for King of Wa, in the hope that it might be passed on to later generations." So that's all fun, and now we get to see the actual real size of Issun. And he is glorious. And I mean, this is just amazing. I love this entire section. It's not necessarily the best dungeon in the world, but you get to have Issun ride on your back like we've had Kushi do, and Susanoo. So it's just like, oh, this is amazing. Because we have shrunk. And I will go into stuff about the Lucky Mallet in a moment, but I feel it a good time to discuss Issun's actual design. Now, as his name might suggest, we based this character on Issun Boshi, which is something I will go into later on. And as such, he was designed with a northern country boy look. Wanted him to look like a Japanese fairy, so we used a lot of plant and insect-based items in fashioning him. Initially, we had given him a rather comical face, but Kamiya begged us to make him handsome, so we gave him elongated eyes and a more serious expression. Though he may be a little obnoxious at times, he is still my favourite character, especially drawing him in flea mode is so easy. So, yeah, Hideki Kamiya really desperately tried to make Issun cool and handsome. And I think he managed to get that to work, which is good. But what's really quite important, actually, about seeing Issun at full size and the Lucky Mallet is that they are actually connected. So, the Lucky Mallet, in Japanese there is a legendary Japanese... well, that total redundancy there, but there's a legendary Japanese magic hammer, which is called Uchide no Kozuchi. And basically, it can tap out anything wished for. So, it's also rendered into English as Magic Wishing Mallet, Lucky Hammer, the Mallet of Fortune, and so on and so forth. And in popular belief, it's a magic wooden hammer that's a standard item held in the hand of the iconic deity Daikoku Ten, who's often represented in figures and statues and so on and so forth. He's one of the 7 lucky gods, apparently. But where there's the important thing is that it's a stock item in popular tales, in particular in Issun Boshi, the story based on the character that Issun here is based off of, and that is One Inch Boy. Basically, the way it roughly rolls is that in the legend, the one-inch tall Issun Boshi, after leaving his parents' home, comes under the employ of a wealthy daimyo, whose daughter is an attractive princess. Although scorned for his height, he's given the job of accompanying the princess. While travelling together, they are attacked by an Oni, basically a demon, who deals with pesky Issun Boshi by swallowing him. He defeats the Oni by pricking him from within with his needle/sword. The Oni spits out Issun Boshi and drops the Uchide no Kozuchi as he runs away. In the Otogizoshi, which is a group of approximately 350 Japanese prose narratives, written primarily in the Muromachi period, so 1392 to 1573, Issun then shakes out opulent riches with the mallet and becomes court favourite. In the better known modernised versions, the princess uses the power of the mallet to grow Issun to full size, and then at the end of the story, Issun Boshi and the princess are married. So that's really quite cool. It also appears in the Momotaro, or Peach Boy, story, in which the mallet is captured from the ogres in Onagashima, alongside the Kakure Mino, Raincoat of Invisibility, Invisibility Cloak, and Kakure Kasa, which is the Hat of Invisibility. There's a whole thing about the fact that ogres possessed this prized mallet, which dates back much earlier than the tales, and it can be traced back as far as the tale of Heiki, which is from around 1240. Or potentially it does date to somewhere before 1118, but it's uncertain. The etymology, basically the Uchide no Kozuchi translates as striking out little hammer, or hammer that strikes anything out that is desired. And basically here it just makes us small so that we can have this wonderful, slightly topsy-turvy dungeon where we are absolutely tiny and have to avoid getting smushed by the feet of these fellas. It's a bit difficult to kind of get around sometimes. I mean, especially when you end up with the foot blocking your view. Because all you need to do is make sure that you cherry bomb there to get something behind the hole. The main thing that you're going there for is the exorcism key. And, the camera really doesn't like this area. It hates it. And it's because you've got the guards getting in the way. Thankfully, once you've dealt with the two kind of holes in the walls, you can then actually make progress and you don't have to worry so much about the camera. There'll come a point a little bit later on where there will be a slight issue again, but nothing horrendously terrible. And it seems we've been noticed by this lady here. And you remember how I sort of said that Issun was a kind of good judge of character? Yeah, he's not perfect. Like, he's certainly reading this girl wrong here, you know? At least until he realises who this is. Because this is Kaguya. Moonlight Beauty. And for anybody who knows the Kaguya story, that's a massive telltale sign of exactly where her narrative goes. For those of you who don't know, I won't spoil it if I haven't already. But it's a wonderful, wonderful story, if incredibly heartbreaking. And just because Kaguya is pretty, Issun's just going all over her saying, "I will rescue you!" Because that's just the type of guy he is, really. Now you can, I believe, speak to Kaguya a little bit more. I think we're going to do that right now, because I believe, she tells us about the Emperor burying treasure somewhere in the garden. It's basically a hint for where you're meant to go now. Really, it's not that difficult to figure out, because you can't progress any further in the direction of where the exorcism key was. There is this kind of lockjaw here, which you just need to get rid of. And then we've got a hole to go down. Yay! But all in all, this is a really simple dungeon. Like, there was an element of confusion in the Moon Cave. There were puzzles in the Gale Shrine. There was potential of getting lost in the Suit of Ruins. Here, no. It's not that difficult at all to figure out where the hell you're going. It's mostly platforming challenges, if anything. Because you need to, at least in this area, use these platform spiders, that is indeed what they're called, to get around. It's easier said than done, but it's certainly worth your while in the end to try and get everything in here, because there are a bunch of clovers. And I think there are a few chests. Might be wrong on that, but either way, it's worth doing, even if it is a little bit difficult. I feel I should point out the red spiders go up, the yellow spiders go down. So, although I think there's a red spider that crosses here, so the ones that you're going to want to worry about are the yellow ones, because they just drop. So you have got to be on it with your jumping abilities. But other than that, nothing too bad. I think if anything, the worst one that I had trouble with is the one that I'm going to try and jump across with now. You can see I had to cut. Basically, because this guy keeps moving, it's very easy to overshoot or undershoot getting on him. Once you're on, you should be okay to then get onto the yellow one to get to this clover. But other than that, it's a bit of a pain. But hidden away in here, we've got a little hidey hole with a bunch of treasure. Obviously there's a lucky cat, and there's this gourd. Well, flask, as they call it. But I think it's probably slightly more accurate to call it a gourd. And once we kind of head inside, I think it's about time for us to get a new brush technique. So, after blowing all of the mist outside, we should be good to go. And so we're going to get what is easily the most abusable brush technique in the game. And I really do mean that. It is abusable beyond all belief. But it's a very good thing to abuse, so it's worth it in the end. Also, I love this introduction cutscene. It's glorious. The only thing, as you will have noticed, is that there's a bit of audio glitching going on. That is not my recording, that is actually within the game. The Wii version has a number of audio glitches like that. It's frustrating, but you learn to just sort of deal with it. But this is Kasugami, who is the god of mist, and gives us the technique Veil of Mist, which I'll discuss in a moment when it turns up. But the etymology of that, Kasumi means mist, so Kasumigami is basically what it's doing, but they shorten it just to, you know, get it to fit within the flow of everybody else's name. But name literally means mist god. And now we have Veil of Mist, which allows us to slow down time, which would allow us to, you know, do matrix moves like Kasugami attempted, but ultimately she failed. So now we are going to do it ourselves and actually, you know, succeed at making progress. So, the reason that this is abusable is because you can use this in combat, and slowing down enemies gives you more time to hit them, and also to get out of the way of their attacks. So, really, it's one you're going to be wanting to use quite a lot. And also, it's the floral finisher for a number of enemies, actually. This one, I think, included. So, it's well worth your while to make use of. It's also the floral finisher for the Abume, which it's frustrating you don't get it until this late on, but I will live. Also, it's really, really, really easy to draw, so why the hell not use it? But we've got our brush technique. It's time to try and stop what's going on with all this mist, I hope.